The sudden clash of metal and the sound of something dropping filled the room as the recording device switched on.
We can edit that out, right? Good.
A moment's paused, and then the voice cleared its throat.
You ever wonder what it means to be God? Whoa, that's too much. Alright, let's not get ahead of ourselves, Tony. Let me rephrase. Have you ever pondered about the concept of godhood? Stripped of all religious differences, we have one single entity, the Almighty, the supreme being who created the universe.
There was a pause. The room was silent, save for the steady tapping of a steel pen against a hard surface. The speaker, Tony Stark, then delved into a contemplative monologue.
Let's look at Christianity, for example. Given its global prevalence, Christians believe that the Almighty created the world in 7 days. The entirety of our planet's ocean, land, the flora, the fauna, all down to the complex web of molecules and DNA. 7 days. There are people who can't even complete a mile within 7 weeks.
The steady tapping ceased, replaced by a thick silence before Tony resumed his musing, concluding his log with a rhetorical question.
How does one gain such power? Do I knock on the heaven's gate and request an audience with the Almighty? Something tells me that wouldn't work out very well. It's alright. I prefer to start small and work my way up. I need to speak with Dr. Paul Kim in Geneva. Maybe he'll let me peek at that large Hadron Collider while I'm there. Stark out.
Stark log, God, 002.
I did it!
The recording picked up a reverberating echo and an indescribable noise, fading as the triumphant declaration echoed across the room. With careful listening, one could discern heavy breathing in between his words.
I have captured God particle.
Stark log, 003.
My last log was cut short, partly due to the fact that I destabilized the God particle. Other part, I may have passed out. Don't ask. Anyway, allow me to explain what I've done.
He launched into a detailed explanation about Higgs boson, the God particle, its significance in the particle physics, and its existence in a vacuum.
It is the quantum excitation of the Higgs field, a fundamental field of crucial importance to particle physics theory, first suspected to exist in the 1960s. Unlike other known fields like electromagnetic fields, it's a non-zero constant volume in a vacuum. The question of the Higgs field's existence has been the last unverified part of the standard model of particle physics, and according to some, the central problem in particle physics.
There was a momentary pause as Tony caught his breath.
In layman's terms, it's the reason why I went to Geneva a few logs back. You see, they have a large Hadron Collider in the CERN project. To give a simple and to-the-point explanation, it's a giant machine they want to use to cross dimensions. I could dive into what's going on over there and, honestly, bring into question the satanic or unraveling rituals involving the god Shiva into question. But I'll leave that to Dr. Strange to investigate. Anyway, when I went down there, Paul and I conversed and spoke about theories of what it meant to find the God particle.
Stark's tone carried an undercurrent of amusement as he spoke about his visit to Geneva, his conversation with Paul, and the things he was shared musing on the implications of the God particle. His voice bore a tinge of superiority as he laughed about the shortcomings of the CERN project.
And that we would explode the Earth without warning. And I agree. They wouldn't have anything to contain it. However, I'm Tony Stark. Okay, I'm done. I took a few days to replicate the LHC over at one of my bunkers. Look, and I know what you're thinking. Oh, Tony, well, that's so much power generated in one place. That could create a black hole and swallow the entire planet. You're joking, right? The fact that I've created a suit that can fly to the moon and back in 7 minutes and you're worried about what I can do inside of one of my bunkers?
The remainder of the recording explains Tony's achievements and everything that he's done, all to which justify his actions. By the end, Tony followed with this statement.
Today, I celebrate my final days as a man. Tomorrow, I'll surpass my brother Thor in godhood.
Stark log, God, 012.
How come no one ever explained that being God was so hard? I mean, really, they should create a manual for this or something. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna read it, but it'd be nice to look at. If you're listening to this, that means I haven't done this yet. However, I may have made some mistakes. While attempting to use the God particle to cross realities, I believe I mistakenly merged one with our current one. Let me ask you something. How do you spell Berenstain Bears? If you spelled the Stein part as Stein, you'd be wrong. What about Oscar Mayer? If you spelled the Meyer Meyer, that too would be wrong. You see, my toying with things turned the Berenstain Bears into the Berenstain Bears, Stain, and Oscar Mayer to Oscar Mayer, Mayer. Nothing big, nothing I can't fix, or that can't be overlooked. I mean, it's not like those things matter, right?
Stark log, God, 016.
Okay. So I've messed some things up, like big time. Those last few logs, I talked about how I accidentally changed a few other things, like, things like how Mickey Mouse never wore suspenders. No, really. Look it up. And the fact that they changed Looney Tunes, Toons, to Looney Tunes, Tunes. So, still not bad, right? Alright, we're fine.
His voice began to quake slightly. In the background, those listening closely could hear the sound of a pen tapping against the hard surface, but at an unnatural rate. Suspicion could conclude that Tony felt like he had done something terrible.
However, because the worlds are blended together, those things still have remnants of existing. I found it in TV shows like The Simpsons. And now we've reached the end of the it's not so bad part.
There was a long pause before Tony spoke again.
How many people were in the car when JFK died? 4, right? Wrong. There are now 6. 6 people in the car. When did Nelson Mandela die? If you said something along the lines of the 1980s, I'd agree with you. However, we'd both be wrong. Now history states that he died in 2013. 2013. Do you get it? I didn't just merge someone else's universe with ours. I am altering our history. Their universe is overlapping ours and making the stronger reality the true one. And I'm not the only one that's noticed. Millions of people have memories from their world, their timeline, a timeline that I erased. And this is just a few things I've managed to find. There's no telling what else I've deleted, or worse, added. I've got to fix this. I have to put everything back to its original place and put the particle far away where it can never be found. Those on the CERN project have no idea what they're doing. It's one thing to jump realities. It's another to erase it.
Stark log, God, 020.
Tony Stark, this is the NWOFP. Open the bunker and surrender.
Loud echoes of heavy booming covered the bunker, inch by inch. The sound of rustling metal and what could be assumed to be equipment, followed by Tony yelling back at them. This transmission hadn't been only audio, it was now live footage.
I'll open up when you guys get better names.
The camera moved and rushing wind muffled the sound as the footage showed him dash across the bunker and slide into a corner.
If you're watching this, I failed. I failed in such a way that assassinating the president is a lesser crime.
More banging could be heard, and now it was followed by a series of explosions. Tony's eyes widened in terror. It was obvious Tony was worse for wears. The bags under his eyes hung, looking as if he hadn't slept in years. His entire appearance appeared to be malnourished. Tony looked like the living dead. The camera weaved around as it began to scoot more and more towards this corner, revealing that his clothes were tattered and soiled, almost as if he'd been attacked and hardly made it out alive.
I don't have much time, so I'm making this SOS. I, Tony Stark, of World and Timeline U1468, have doomed my people. I've attempted to play God, and instead I made a tyrant, the Lord Ruler of the One World Government. This new world order was created after I attempted to correct my mistakes. In doing so, I have erased prominent people from this timeline and created the prime opportunity for Vic.
A massive explosion forced the camera to shake. Louder screams could be heard, accompanied by more banging, this time closer. Tony, who appeared to have been jostled by the explosion, scavenged for his camera. His hand rattled, forcing the camera to quake unsteadily throughout the remainder of his message.
They've taken everything. Everything except the God particle, which is now being called the Heart of Eden. What he doesn't know is I've cracked it. Figured it out, how to cross over to the other worlds. However, it's too late for me. And so, I'm sending this drone as a message to anyone that can help. Save them. Save them from what my curiosity has caused us. If by the time you see this, and I've died, I pray you bring a Tony Stark from your world. Only he will know where I've hidden the heart.
One final explosion shook the entire room. Both sound and picture from the drone had been distorted, and the lights that had once lit the room had dimmed or become shattered.
Tony Stark, you are under arrest for treason against the Lord Ruler. Put your hands up and bow before your God.
Tony managed to grab the camera, which must have been small enough to hide in the palm of his hand, unnoticed, given that he was not shot as he rose his hands. The sea of military agents parted, and storming down the pathway was the God clad in white. The picture quality became more distorted by the second. However, through the distorted picture, they could see him, the Lord Ruler, Victor Von Doom.
Take him.
Thank you everyone for listening. This was a group storyline that I conceptualized some years back when I was Iron Man, called Man in the High Castle, a Secret War storyline. Please stay tuned for more dramatized storytelling.